And a good morning to you. This is the 29th day of October, and it's Friday, isn't it? Sounds like a Friday. In Romans 12th chapter, verse 1, NIV says this: Therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Romans 12:1 NIV. Then Romans 12:1 and 2 goes like this from the Message. So here's what I want you to do. God helping you, take your everyday ordinary life, your sleeping, eating, going to work, and walking around life, and place it before God as an offering. Embracing what God does for you is the best thing you can do for Him. Don't become so well adjusted to your culture that you fit into it without even thinking. Instead, fix your attention on God. You'll be changed from the inside out. Readily recognize what He wants from you and quickly respond to it. Unlike the culture around you, always dragging you down to its level of immaturity, God brings the best out of you, develops well-formed maturity in you. In other words, do it God's way. What I'm about to read comes from an unknown American. It is lengthy, but worth the time. I wish I had said all this, since it sums up our problem very well. Were we to do as Paul urged in Romans to do, all of this would be taken care of. So I quote from an unknown author. What I'm about to read, let me do this again. Here it is. Men, like nations, think they're eternal. What man in his 20s or 30s doesn't believe, at least subconsciously, is that he'll live forever. In the springtime of youth, an endless summer beckons. As you pass 70, it's harder to hide from reality. Nations also have seasons. Imagine a Roman of the 2nd century contemplating an empire that stretched from Britain to the Near East, thinking, this will endure forever. Forever was about 500 years, give or take. France was pivotal in the 17th and 18th centuries, and now the land of Charles Martel is on its way to becoming part of the Muslim Ummah. In the 19th century and early 20th centuries, the sun never set on the British Empire, and now Albion exists in a perpetual twilight. Its 95-year-old sovereign is a fitting symbol for a nation in terminal decline. In the 1980s, Japan seemed poised to buy the world. Business schools taught Japanese management techniques. Today, its birth rate is so low and its population aging so rapidly that an industry has sprung up to remove the remains of elderly Japanese who die alone. This man was born in 1942, almost at the midpoint of the 20th century, the American century. America's prestige and influence were never greater. Thanks to the greatest generation, we won a world war fought throughout most of Europe, Asia, and the Pacific. We reduced Germany to rubble and put the rising sun to bed. It set the stage for almost half a century of unprecedented prosperity. We stopped the spread of communism in Europe and Asia and fought international terrorism. We rebuilt our enemies and lavished foreign aid on much of the world. We built skyscrapers and rockets to the moon. We conquered polio and now COVID. We explored the mysteries of the universe and the wonders of DNA, the blueprint of life. But where is the glory that was Rome? America has moved from a relatively free economy to socialism, which has worked so well nowhere in the world. We've gone from Republican government guided by a constitution to a regime of revolting elites. We have less freedom with each passing year. Like a signpost to the coming reign of terror, the cancel culture is everywhere. We've traded the American Revolution for the cultural revolution. The pathetic creature in the White House is an empty vessel filled by his handlers. At the G7 summit, Dr. Jill had to lead him like a child. In 1961, when we were young and vigorous, our leader was too. And now a feeble nation is technically led by the oldest man ever to serve in the presidency. We can't defend our borders, our history, including monuments to past greatness, or our streets. Our cities have become anarchist, or anarchist, Our cities have become anarchist playgrounds, and we are a nation of dependents, mendicants, and misplaced charity. Homeless veterans camp in the streets while illegal aliens are put up in hotels. The President of the United States can't even quote the beginning of the Declaration of Independence, the thing, correctly. Ivy League graduates routinely fail history tests that fifth graders could pass a generation ago. Crime rates soar, and we blame the Second Amendment and slash police budgets. Our culture is certifiably insane. Men who think they're women, people who fight racism by seeking to convince members of one race that they're inherently evil, and others that they're perpetually victims. Psychiatrist lecturing at Yale said she fantasizes about unloading a revolver into the head of any white person. We slaughter the unborn in the name of freedom, while our birth rate dips lower year by year. Our national debt is so high that we can no longer even pretend that we will repay it one day. It's a $28 trillion monument to our improvidence and refusal to confront reality. Our entertainment is sadistic, nihilistic, and is enduring as a candy bar wrapper thrown in the trash. Our music is noise that spans the spectrum from annoying to repulsive. Patriotism is called insurrection, treason, celebrated, and perversion, sanctified. A man in blue gets less respect than a man in a dress. We're asking soldiers to fight for a nation our leaders no longer believe in. How meekly most of us submitted to Fauciism, the regime of face mask lockdowns and hand sanitizers, shows the impending death of the American spirit. How do nations slip from greatness to obscurity? Fighting endless wars they can't or won't win, accumulating massive debt far beyond their ability to repay, refusing to guard their borders, allowing the nation to be inundated by alien hordes, surrounding control of their cities to mob rule, allowing the indoctrination of the young, moving from the Republican form of government to an oligarchy, losing national identity, indulging indolence, abandoning faith and family, the bulwarks of social order. In America, every one of these symptoms is pronounced, indicating an advanced stage of the disease. Even if the cause seems hopeless, we do not have an obligation to those who sacrificed so much to give us what we had. I'm surrounded by ghosts urging me on. The Union soldiers who held Cemetery Ridge at Gettysburg, the battered bastards of Bastogne, who served in the cold hell of Korea, those guys who went to the jungles of Southeast Asia and came home to be reviled or elected. This is a nation took in my immigrant grandparents, whose uniform my father and most of my uncles wore in the Second World War. I don't want to imagine a world without America, even though it becomes increasingly likely. During Britain's darkest hour, when his professional army was trapped at Dunkirk and a German invasion seemed imminent, Churchill reminded his countrymen, "Nations that go down fighting rise again, and those that surrender tamely are finished." The same might be said of causes. If we let America slip through our fingers, if we lose it without a fight, what will posterity say of us? Posterity will laugh. While the prognosis is far from good, only God knows if America's day in the sun is over. Wow. What an indictment. I didn't say it, but someone else did, and it needed to be said. So again, I quote Romans 12:1 from the Message. So here's what I want you to do, God helping you. Take your everyday ordinary life, your sleeping, eating, going to work, and walking around life, and place it before God as an offering. Embracing what God does for you is the best thing you can do for Him. Don't become so well adjusted to your culture that you fit into it without even thinking. Instead, fix your attention on God. You'll be changed from the inside out. Readily recognize that He wants something from you and quickly respond to it. Unlike the culture around you, always dragging you down to its level of immaturity, God brings you the best out of you and develops well-formed maturity in you. Go with God. Go with God, and that's what I get from my little corner studio under the eagle's nest, right here in the shadow of Kyle Field. Gig 'em. Ride 'em, Cowboys. Go Bearcats, and God bless you all.